Greetings, lovers of the unintentional comedy, which is the Mexican policy. Welcome to this space where we break down reality before reality breaks us down. Now, I want to present to you the most recent blow delivered by Senator Lili Tellez. Scenarios are governed by 40 years. That's what we're dealing with. To Texas, land of big hats, big stakes, and now the perfect scenario for Lili Tellez to launch herself onto the international stage with a speech that would make any narco series screenwriter pale in comparison. As a result, our sharp legislator went to the Texas Policy Summit to discuss what we usually keep among ourselves, that Mexico is not a socialist country. The diagnosis? Socialism with gunpowder. Tellez, with that "I warned you and you didn't listen" tone he likes so much, dropped the bomb in front of the friends at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. According to him, Mexico is not a democratic neighbor, but a hybrid where socialism, corruption, and cartels are all found in a single group. He says that we're dealing with a regime where narco-terrorism and authoritarian policies are a reality. The juiciest part came when the message was from someone known as El Mencho. According to the senator, the leader of the Jalisco New Generation cartel was working with the military as recently as February of this year because of pressure from Donald Trump and the push for the law. In other words, pressure. What was missing, says Ms. Tellez, is the political will of the lady in the National Palace who seems to prefer dealing with criminals rather than the citizens. People will say that here in the city, without mincing words, the senator is talking about the narco alliance. Tellez didn't hold anything back when she said that the ruling party Morena decides to govern with the cartels instead. In her words, in the 2024 elections, the campaign coordinators won't be wearing guinda vests, but rather bulletproof and high-power vests. Deciding here to wait for election day and see who makes it through. With more than 40 candidates assassinated, Mexican democracy seems more like a dance of death than a civic exercise. Minaitil is known in the Mexican Senate and is working on the nomination of Roberto for international cooperation. The senator described him as the master of deals and empty promises in Washington. In some cases, Sheinbaum sabotaged cooperation against counterterrorism. It is a matter of wanting to get rid of her own responsibility. He issued a final warning: it doesn't matter how normal. His sudden desperation was a cry for help. Politicians are unpunished, not only in this regime but in authority as normal policy. Recalling the assassination of Carlos Manza and Files and the Supreme Court, 26 years ago, events like these show that in Mexico, journalism or opposition politics is like playing Russian roulette with a loaded chamber. And here, that public culture and knowledge ended another episode of this tragicomedy called Mexico, dear to the cartels. Literally, there's just a party of announcements and the gringos scratching their heads. Now it's our turn to propose. I leave you with a great speech given by Senator Lili Tellez, which is not to be missed. Please enjoy it. It's a pleasure to listen to this woman with real backbone, because that's what many who call themselves the opposition and have presence and personality at the Texas Policy Summit 25 are lacking. An impeccable, brave, and dignified presentation. It was really worth listening to her.
Thank you. Thank you. Distinguished members of the Texas Public Policy Foundation, dear friends of Patria Unida, thank you for your support, for helping me be here to speak with you. Ladies and gentlemen, I warned that Mexico was drifting away from the free world and sliding into a new and dangerous kind of regime. One in which socialism, corruption, and cartels merge into a single power structure. Mexico is not simply going through a crisis of national security. It is undergoing a regime change, an experiment in building what I call a socialist mafiocracy, a system in which authoritarian politics, an omnipresent state, and narco-terrorism are fused into one. And yes, this is happening on the southern flank of the United States. Let me start from a shared reality. The fentanyl epidemic in this country is not just a statistic for us. The same structures that flood American streets with drugs are the ones that turn Mexican towns into war zones. The chain is one and the same. Armed terrorist groups, corrupt politicians and officials, transnational networks, and finally, devastated families on both sides of the border. One of the clearest examples of this hemispheric threat is the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, led until recently by Nemesio Seguera Cervantes, known as El Mencho. This organization evolved from a drug trafficking group into a multinational enterprise of terror and a parallel authority in Mexico. It not only managed global supply chains of fentanyl and other drugs, it also acts as a de facto authority in many regions of Mexico. Cartels like this decide who can run for office, who can open a business, and even who is allowed to live in a given town. They collect taxes through extortion, they control strategic routes, and they maintain militias prepared to conquer and defend territories. But they are not invincible. In February of this year, El Mencho was finally killed by the Mexican military in an operation in Jalisco, supported by United States intelligence. That helped pinpoint his exact location. He is dead. But his cartel's operation is still thriving in alliance with Morena's government. It is impossible not to ask why, after so many years of suffering and violence inflicted by this cartel, the Mexican authorities finally decided to go after him. Only when President Trump put sustained pressure on our government. The answer is simple. It was never a question of capacity, it was always a question of political will. The problem has never been the Mexican military. The problem has been the Mexican commander-in-chief, the president, who does not want to give the order to dismantle the cartels. That is why, when Mexicans are asked about the idea of a United States military intervention on our soil to eliminate the cartels, most reject it. But at the same time, an overwhelming majority support close, robust cooperation between our countries to defeat this common enemy. We Mexicans are patriots. We want to fight and win our own battles. The problem is that the Mexican Morena government has been complicit with cartels, allowing them to grow stronger. The clearest evidence came in the days after El Mencho's death. Armed militias emerge almost simultaneously in multiple states to avenge their dead leader. Across large parts of the country, Mexicans lived through scenes of war and terror. Millions had to shelter in their homes, afraid of being caught in the crossfire. Roadblocks with burning vehicles appeared at dozens of locations. Highways were blocked and entire cities were paralyzed. Businesses were burned. Dozens of security personnel were attacked, and dozens of our brave soldiers paid with their lives in ambushes. The fact that a criminal organization can deploy this level of military power and territorial disruption is only possible because it has the direct support of those in the government. It is clear that we are no longer facing ordinary organized crime, but a fusion between criminal cartels and political power. The socialist ruling party, Morena, chose to govern with the cartels instead of against them. In many regions, the state and the narcos are no longer enemies. They have become partners in a shared project of control. During elections, cartels have become the hidden campaign coordinators, deciding who can put up posters, who can hold rallies, and who will not live. Long enough to see Election Day. In the 2024 elections, more than 40 candidates were murdered. We held elections, but in too many places, the true electoral authority was the cartel's command. This is the backdrop against which the United States made a strategic choice. When the United States elevated Mexican cartels as a national security threat and built a comprehensive shield, the Trump administration broke with years of dangerous complacency. President Sheinbaum said she was proud of not being invited to the shield with other Latin American presidents to fight against cartels. The United States elevated the fight against organizations like El Mencho to the level where it belongs. President Trump signaled that cooperation would no longer mean press releases and photo opportunities, but real pressure, real intelligence sharing, and real consequences. But I am here to offer a warning. The strategy of the Mexican regime is to navigate the Trump administration and wait it out. They hope that a future administration will relax the pressure and allow them to return to business as usual. They are willing to deliver a few symbolic blows against certain cartel leaders, but not to break the narco-political pact they themselves helped build. Just today, right now, Mexico will have a new Secretary for International Affairs, Roberto Velasco, right now at the Mexican Senate. He's the same person who had meetings with high American officials in Washington, D.C., who promised more cooperation. But back with President Sheinbaum, it sabotages the work between our countries against the enemy. Because the heart of the problem is this: the people who should protect Mexicans and who should be your partners in dismantling narco-terrorism depend on narco-terrorism to maintain their own power. This is why I insist security cooperation with Mexico should be continued, not only on how many tons of drugs are seized or how many capos are extradited, but also on whether the Mexican government is willing to respect the rule of law and dismantle the narco-political networks inside the state. There are sitting senators, governors, including some in border states with the United States, and even in Sheinbaum's cabinet members with links to organized crime, and yet not a single prominent politician, narco-politician from Morena has been prosecuted. No one. We are in the early stages of a problem that can become as big as Venezuela. Dear American friends, some of us in Mexico are raising our voices, but not without consequences. Last November, we were horrified by the assassination of Carlos Manso, a courageous major who stood up to the cartels and denounced their ties to the federal government. He was executed in public while participating in a parade with his family. That image, a local leader gunned down in the middle of a civic festivity, deeply moved and horrified Mexicans. We are in an extreme situation. I say it as someone who, before entering politics 8 years ago, spent 3 decades as a journalist, and who survived an assassination attempt 26 years ago because I was exposing politicians and narco-corruption. In all that time, I have never seen the level of danger facing the opposition in Mexico that we see today. We face a double threat from the cartels and from their allies in the government. This is why conservatives in the United States must recognize Mexican conservatives as natural allies in a common fight. We are not asking you to fight our battles for us. We are asking you not to close your eyes to who we are and what we are facing. The momentum that President Trump has given to the hemispheric fight against narco-terrorism must also focus on stopping narco-politics. We must go after those narco-politicians that betrayed Mexicans and our partners. What we ask of you is this: do not treat the anarcho-authoritarian regime on your border as normal politics. Morena is the alliance of authoritarianism and cartels. Do not accept short-term concessions in exchange for long-term catastrophe. And always remember, in Mexico, there are millions of brave people who want to see terrorism fall as much as you do. Thank you.
That reminds me of May 2005 when I was 20. President Felipe Calderón gave a historic speech in the United States Congress in Washington, D.C. Where is the ovation? Calderón became the first president to address them. The congressmen are universal, and in Los Angeles, the bilateral cooperation and responsibility within my respects for Los Angeles, the elites. That is represented in Mexico, the world, and to hide under a territory. The plan of P. Anyway, stay tuned. Remember, in this country, reality surpasses fiction for many. Leave your opinions in the comments. Have an excellent weekend, man. We'll see each other on Monday.
Recuerda que puedes hacer tus donativos.
You can find the relevant information in the comments. Thank you, man. This is your buddy Seek signing off. It's important to subscribe, like, and turn on the bell to receive notifications when there's new content. Thank you.
Gracias.